Hello, and welcome back to the Random New World tile making tutorial for Europa Universalis 4. In this video, we're going to be finishing up our tile by adding in some flavor elements such as straits and trade modifiers. So, here's our tile in game. It's just about done and it's looking good, but it's missing a few key features. For one thing, it doesn't have any trade modifiers, which we'd like to add certain provinces that are more useful um, for controlling trade over the landmass, over the trade region that it's in. So what we're going to be adding is a couple important natural harbors, because we can see there's a few good places for them. You can imagine that here would be a good place to have a trade base, as would here in this bay. We have the option of adding a couple other things, such as inland centers of trade and important river estuaries. But because this because this landmass is so small, I don't think an inland center of trade would make very much sense. And it doesn't have any large rivers either, so I don't think an important river estuary would make much sense either. So you're just going to add in those two important centers of trade, those important natural harbors, so that you can get a sense of how to do it. And we're also going to draw a strait in between these two provinces, because, you know, it looks like it would make sense to have a strait there. So let me show you how this is done. Straits and important natural harbors and such go in our text file. So here's the code for the strait. So you have strait equals, then from, that's the first province, you put the RGB value in here. To the second province, you put the RGB value in here. These are interchangeable. Straits go in both directions, so from and to is kind of arbitrary. The important thing is that you have one of your provinces in one and the other in the other. And then through, which is the C province, which the strait passes through. And you can only have one C province, there's only one option there. From the important natural harbors, it's sort of the same thing. We just have this important underscore natural underscore harbor line equals, and then the RGB value. These ones don't work, I don't think. I'll get to that in a second. And you can find all the other strings for the trade for the flavor modifiers that we get to use in the guide, which I'll link once again in the description. Other things you can do are specify the names of certain provinces, which is also useful. So I'm going to head back to our province map here. Now, adding flavor modifiers doesn't actually require us to change our province map, not strictly anyways, but we're going to do it anyhow, and I'll show you why. When you have a lot of different trade modifiers, especially on a large tile, it can be really useful to know at a glance where they are, and just looking at the RGB values in the text file won't exactly tell you that, because unless you've memorized every single RGB value in your tile, you won't just be able to look at those and understand where they are. So what we're going to do in order to keep track of these things is, with our province map layer selected, use our feather tool and select, so I'm going to press shift here to select again, select the two provinces we want to make trade modifiers out of, Control C to put them on our clipboard, create a new layer on the same level as our province map layer, or rather our land provinces layer. Just so, call it trade modifiers. There it is, and I'm going to press Control V to paste these two provinces I copied in, and anchor it. So now what I can do is decrease the opacity of my province map, and I can see exactly where my modifier provinces are. Now we want to get their RGB values so that we can input them into their slots in the text file. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select my color picker tool, then go select this that says use info window, and then select my first province. And that gives me red 191, green 10, blue 10. You might be wondering why we're using this window instead of just using our default little handy eyedropper here. Well, if you notice, when we click here, it gives us a different value. And I'm not entirely sure why that is. I know for a fact that this value is wrong because I've tested it. My theory is that this is not the most precise tool. It works when you want to get a sense of what the color is, but it's inaccurate in the to the degree of a few RGB values. And for our purposes, we want it to be absolutely exact. So we're going to use the color picker and the info window, which seems to make a bit more sense. So I'm going to go 191, 10, 10, and then put it into one of my harbor lines here. So 191, 10, 10, and do the exact same thing for my other one. Scroll over here, there's a function on this one. and that's 204, 31, 31. 204, 31, 31. Very good. And now let's make our straight. So I'm going to bring this back up to full opacity, and I'm going to do the exact same thing for the straight provinces. I'm going to select this. I'm going to go sample merged, so I get the C provinces, so I can select the C province as well without having to change layers. So there. Shift click. So now I'm selecting something that's actually on a layer below, but because I've pressed sample merged, it's okay. Then shift click like so. And I believe, I might not be entirely correct, but it should copy everything, including the C province down there. Let's find out if this is the case. We'll create a new layer, call it straits, enter, paste what we just selected, and I forgot to copy. So copy, paste what we just selected, and it only copied over the two land provinces. Okay, that's a little annoying, but it's fine. We can correct that. Just to be absolutely sure. Decrease the opacity of this. Yeah, so it didn't catch it. That's okay though. We just go down here. I'm sample merged again, so it's only going to catch the bit that's between the land provinces. So there it is. Control C, Control paste it over here, and anchor it. So now when we decrease the opacity of this, we see, alright, we've got our one trade modifiers up here. We can selectively hide those by modifying that layer. And we've got our two straits. And if we even decrease the opacity of the C provinces, we now know that these are the three provinces we want to use. Okay, great. I'm going to raise the opacity of everything again, just to avoid confusion when we're picking our colors. Do the exact same thing I did with the previous ones with the color picker tool. Sorry. So I'll take the first province, say, arbitrarily, click it. I'm on the wrong layer. So with the province map selected, select this. Okay, so that's 179, 27, 27. So from 179, 27, 27, close that. Do it again for the other province. So 230, 34, 34. And then through, I'm going to select the C provinces now, through 0, 140, 140. 0, 140, 140. Great, okay, so now we have our straits and our two important natural harbors, our flavor elements that we wanted. Let's save this and see how it looks in game. Okay, so we're back in game, and now you can see if our modifications worked. So, straight away we see that we have a strait between these two provinces, so that worked. Here is the province, one of the provinces where we put our important natural harbor. And we can see, yep, it's got it. And where's the other one? Right over here. Important natural harbor is there. Brilliant, okay. So as far as functionality goes, I think our tile has everything that it needs. However, for the sake of this tutorial, I'm going to go over some other flavor elements that you could include if you so wanted to. Once again, not entirely necessary, but you know, might as well know everything that you need to know. So the very first thing is regions. Now, I'm going to go to observe mode to show some of the other tiles in this random world that I created. That I generated. We can see that, alright, they're not terribly large, but let's check the regions map mode for a second. Regions. Okay, so, yeah, you can see on this tile, right? It's one tile, but it's got two regions on it. And if you look at ours, there's just one region. So we can define regions in our tile, and it's useful to do so, because regions make a big difference in tiles, basically. They are what the trade regions are drawn around. So you can see that there's one trade node here, there's another trade node here, and then maps perfectly onto the regions. When the scenario system is placing nations onto the random new world, it does so on a region by region basis. So let me show you how to draw regions on this tile. I'm going to make two of them, one up here and one down here. Once again, I don't think our tile is large enough to really justify having two regions, but for the sake of this tutorial, I'll do it. So here's how that's done. So to define regions, what we do is, I'm going to do it right below here. First of all, you put in you type regions, and you say equals, and then the number of regions you have in your tile. So regions equal 2. Now, that's not enough, because we haven't actually defined any regions. Right now, it's regions equal 0, technically. So if we just load it up like this, the game will crash, because it'll say, well, we looked for 2 regions, but we couldn't find any. So we have to define 2. So we're going to say region equals, and we're going to put in 2 curly brackets here. We'll fill this in with RGB values in a second. We'll do that once again. So now let's go back to our province map, and we're going to do the same thing. We're going to define our region centers. Alright, yeah, so region centers. So the way regions work in the RNW world is you define one province in your province map to be the center of a region, and you define another to be the center of another region. And basically what the game does is define some sort of average between those two, and it adds a number of provinces close to this one here to that region, which is defined there, and it adds a number of provinces around here to this region that's defined there. There's an element of randomness to it. So you define a region center here and a region center in that province. In one generation, this one could have all the provinces up to like here. In another generation, this one could have all the provinces up to like here, or even further. The point is you're generating center points, and there's going to be a lot of fluctuation about how the game adds provinces to the regions around those center points, but the center points are defining the center points is the most control you get over how the game generates regions in the random world. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to define 2 center points. I'm going to put one here, I'm going to put one there. We're going to do the same thing as we did earlier by separating our trade modifiers and our straits out. We're going to select the 2 provinces that we want to use. So I'm going to select this one, and I'm going to select this one. Control C, put it onto my clipboard. Once again, make a new layer called region centers, like so. Paste them on and anchor. Putting your region centers in another layer like this, once again, very, very useful, because when you have a large tile that has a lot of region centers and you're trying to figure out the best way to have the game draw your regions, which means changing where the region centers are, it's very, very useful to be able to zoom out and see at a glance where your centers are and get a sense of how the game is drawing it. Because you can just go like this, and all of a sudden I know, okay, so I've got one on either side of the island, and that's how it's going to be drawn. So, bring this back up. So once again, I'm going to use my eyedropper tool with the use info window button selected. Hit this, so I know that this color is 102/2020. Define my first region as that, 102/2020. Find another region, which is this one, as 204/41/41. Very good. Okay, so now when the game loads up, this island should have 2 regions on it. What else can we do? Well, as I mentioned earlier, you can name specific provinces things. So let's do that just for kicks. So here's a script for defining province names. You go province underscore names equals, and then 2 curly brackets. Within those curly brackets, your province name between quotation marks equals RGB, once again, in curly brackets. So, something that's good to know is that trade modifiers define the province where trade nodes will be centered on. If you have multiple trade modifiers within the same region, then the game will pick one at random. But when you just have one, you effectively have control over what that trade node is going to be called, because you can name the province with the only trade modifier whatever you want. So I know for a fact that this province right here has a trade modifier in it, and I also know that chances are it's going to be the center of trade for the node that gets drawn around this region center, right? And so what I can do now is I can name this province something specific, and know with a good degree of confidence that when I load up the game, the trade region here is going to be the name of this province. So, being the narcissist that I am, I'm going to go ahead and name this province something like Elzaphoria. And so I'll get the color of it again, it's 191/1010. So go over here and say Elzaphoria. 191, 10, 10. There we go. And save that. Okay, so let's go back into game and see how this looks. And I should mention here, when I say I'm going to go back into game, I mean I'm going to close the game down and I'm going to start it right back up again with my mod enabled because it has to reload all the files that I've been changing. I hope that's been obvious all the way through. Okay, now we're in game. Let's have a look at how these things worked out. So, if I go to trade map here, you see that, yeah, we now have 2 different trade zones, and one of them is called Elseforia, because this province is now called Elseforia. Brilliant. We go here and we check our regions map mode. We see that yes, indeed, we have 2 separate regions, just like so. So we successfully divided our tile into 2 regions and defined the name of one of its provinces and by extension the name of one of its trade zones. I should mention that that's really the only way to define the name of trade zones. I don't believe you can define the name of regions in the same way, unfortunately. We just don't have control over that just yet. So yeah, I would say that our tile is pretty much finished here. Very marshy when it gets down here. I think it's because of all the rivers. And flat land too. If we raise the elevation of the land around the coasts, probably wouldn't see so many marshes, but that's not so much of a problem. Anyhow, I would say that our tile is now finished. So I'm going to upload it into the Steam Workshop for everyone to play with. I'll also include a link to download it in the description below so that you can edit it yourself and play with it if you so choose. And that's that. I hope that you've learned something over the course of this tutorial series. I'm certainly happy for having made it, and I'm looking forward to seeing your creations on the workshop. So thank you so much for watching, and goodbye.